So first of all, I should clear the air. That's not me. For the observant people in the room, that is my partner, Nikki. She unfortunately could not be here today, but I am. My name's Alex. I'm a partner at Lightspeed. I'm super excited to be here in the Fox Theater and see you all. Thank you for the standing ovation. I assume that was for Katherine. I'm thrilled today that you're joining me for this discussion.
I'm thrilled that you're joining me.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're going to have fun talking about media, commerce, and fashion, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of fashion, you know, this is my first time with this Britney Spears earpiece on, and they had me remove my earrings, so my look is not feeling complete. I just wanted to tell you guys I had a really good pair of earrings.
They were pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Backstage.
Yeah. So just imagine that dropping pearl from each lobe.
Well, you know, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Clique, but it's actually, the company was founded a decade ago and is now one of the most powerful brands in all of Gen Z, millennial, female fashion, it had some very different beginnings than what it is today. And so I thought a good way to start this discussion would be to talk about when you were at Elle magazine in 2006, and you were thinking about leaving the company to go do something entrepreneurial. Why did you do what you did? And talk about what you started and how it's evolved from then until today.
Sure. So it was about 13 years ago. I was the West Coast editor for Elle magazine and Elle Girl, which was the teen magazine. And I was in my early 20s. I was spending all my time on the computer. But you have to keep in mind, this was long before the iPhone. Facebook had just launched and was exclusive to college students. MySpace was the social media network du jour. And I was so frustrated that I couldn't get the same kind of content I was getting in a print magazine on the computer. We had a bunch of gossip blogs popping up, and we had a few online retailers. But there was no place to just go for fashion. And it was a really interesting time. It was a point in time where we went from the big fashion houses or editors like Anna Wintour really dictating what was cool in fashion. And with the rise of kind of the paparazzi and pop culture and celebrity style, we took a shift and the celebrities started to influence the big fashion houses. And I thought there was an opportunity there to communicate fashion in a different way because we were really a new consumer. So we set out to kind of reimagine the way that women like us would consume this kind of content on the internet. And to also reimagine how we could shop for it. Because at that point, you would look in a magazine for a product, you'd flip to the back of the book, you'd get an 800 number, and you'd get some corporate receptionist at Michael Kors when you were looking for the new bag. So it would lead to a dead end, and we felt like there was a more efficient way for women to shop.
That's amazing. And it's interesting to think about that in the context of the media landscape today, where there's just a lot more attention paid to brands inside of social networks that advertise all the time, and it's so much harder to stand out. I think one of the interesting things you guys have done is you've built all these micro media sites and cater to smaller communities, and you're able to continue to engage these audiences and maybe even, I don't know, cross-promote between these different communities. So can you just talk a little bit about how you've built a sustainable strategy in media in this changing landscape that we have today?
Absolutely. You know, when we started with our first brand, which was whowhatwear.com, which was essentially a newsletter that we sent out with one story a day. And 6 years later, we launched Birdie, which is our beauty site, and My Domain, which is home decor and lifestyle. And you know, at the time, it was a much cooler move to kind of consolidate all of these different content types into one web domain. So everybody that was popping up around the same time, Pop Sugar, Refinery 29, all catering to this female millennial, but they were driving all the traffic into one place. And so as a result, the content was becoming really general, and you were covering all these different topics. And we knew we wanted to stay very specific to the community, and we also knew that we wanted to develop strong individual brands because we felt like there was other ways to make money outside of just media. So we got a lot of questions along the way. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you launching all of these different sites? Why not consolidate into one domain? But we had a very clear vision for it. And It's served us very well. I'm glad we did. We've been able to maintain kind of this core group of trendsetters around every lifestyle passion point, from home decor to fitness to fashion and beauty for millennials and Gen Z. And I think we were talking a little bit about this before, but there are a certain amount of women who are going to seek out fashion content, or a certain amount of women that are real beauty enthusiasts, right? So how do you reach the people beyond that group? And we feel like if you're not in that core group, you're going to go ask your friend. You're going to ask the friend in your life that always has the new handbag, or that always has the best lip gloss color, and you're going to ask her where to buy something. So we feel like if we target that girl, it's a greater chance of reaching the masses in a meaningful way. So what we've done is, instead of scaling one website, we've scaled by adding different communities across these lifestyle passion points.
Yeah, you and I were talking a little bit backstage about how the world of fashion has changed in terms of who the trendsetters are.
Right.
And one of the things the internet enables you to do is connect with people in micro communities and find things that are bubbling up from the bottom as opposed to coming down from on top. Can you talk a little bit about the systems and products that you've created to surface those trends before other people see it? Because that's so much of what makes the content so compelling.
Right, and I think that's, even going back to what we saw in 2005, 2006, where it started to be celebrities on the street that would influence what designers were creating. Now it's people around the world, real, regular people on social media, people that have their own blogs, people that have their own YouTube channels, and they're really, influencing culture and as a result, fashion in a big way. So I think we've seen a huge rise in urban streetwear, and that's not coming from Tom Ford. That's coming from the community. So I think it's a really interesting time where the internet has created this ability and this way for people anywhere to influence pop culture at large.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about what you guys do is you direct that. When this new trend occurs, you write about it, you talk about it, and then you direct it towards commerce.
Right.
So you're pointing that intent towards products, and you work with folks to build your own products as well as work with partners. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen this sort of trend behavior, the way the trend behavior is changing, influence what retailers are doing, and maybe touch on a little bit of your partnership with Target, because I think that's pretty germane.
Absolutely. So we, have always been a very data-driven company. We look at the consumer and the behavior across our websites, and we really use that to inform our content creation, and always have. And when we were approached by Target to create our first apparel line under the Who What Wear brand, we thought, what if we approached it in the same way that we approach content development? What if we approach product development that way, where we're looking at what women are searching for at any given time in the year, what they're purchasing across about 300 different retailers that we link to. We're scraping Instagram to see what conversations are bubbling up around trends. And then we feed that to our designers, who are, like any great design team, forecasting fashion trends based on the fashion cycle. But then they get this big group of data that allows them to make stronger bets, or encourage the buyers to buy more deeply into a certain area. So we're really taking everything from search queries to the most popular items that are building up in sales across our websites, and using that as inspiration.
Do you see this as a more common type of arrangement, a type of partnership, where more companies that, say, start from a media standpoint are going to be working with retailers to redefine how products are created and sold to consumers? Is that a convergence you're going to see happening more and more with other media brands?
Yeah, I think it's something you're going to see happening with more consumer brands, because you cannot have a brand today without an engaged community. It really has to start there, because you have to understand who you're creating the product for, and you have to tailor every single bit of your experience to that group, and include them in the process. So, we'll be in a design meeting and we'll go on Instagram stories and we'll show 3 or 4 different prints or patterns and ask which one, do our shoppers like the best. And before we've even left the meeting, we have a few thousand responses that tells us which direction to go in. And that's something we are able to do because we're a media site, but you'll start to see any strong brand coming out today is building that community around the brand, and it's often, they're being engaged through content.
Yeah. I mean, what were some of the more surprising things that you noticed starting to work with these retailers? Where were they behind and where were they ahead relative to where you thought they would be?
I think every big retailer has the capabilities of collecting a lot of data. It's honestly not hard. There are so many different, third-party providers that'll put your data together and even, give you back some sort of reporting. What's really hard to do is to create insights out of the data. And then once you have the insights, distributing them to the appropriate team members to actually inform the product development process. And it's something that we've had the benefit of learning by being such a small and nimble company. Understanding that, who does what around the table is a lot easier when it's a table of 20 versus a table of 2,000. Yeah. So, we've been able to go into our partnerships with, someone like Target and not only bring that data-informed design to their retail stores, but also go in and talk about, how we are actually leveraging the data to create the insights to make the product.
Interesting. I want to touch on a little bit of the how you do it part of it, because unlike some other media brands that have raised a lot of money to go to market and build very, very large news teams, your company's been very capital efficient over the last 10 years. I think publicly it says something like $30 million raised, which over a 10-year period is not a lot.
Correct.
So that speaks to maybe a different way that you've built the business.
Yeah.
And with that ethos in mind, maybe you can talk a little bit about what your philosophy is on capital efficiency and organizational design and frankly, profitability.
Absolutely. I love this question. So you're right. We've raised very little money in comparison to other companies our size, and we're going into our 12th year now. And what we did is we brought this first brand to life, and we probably would have raised our Series A in 2008 because we launched in 2006. And that's when the economy crashed. So we thought, let's not even go out and try to raise money. Let's just focus on building the business. We started to make money at that point. We said, let's just use our profits. What a novel idea.
Profits.
To fuel our growth. And we did that until 2012. And at that point, we wanted to launch new brands, build a bigger business. So we raised our Series A at that point. But we had already trained ourselves to be profitable and to be scrappy and to be super resourceful. And I think that was such an important thing for us to go through because it's informed our culture today. And so we've always been focused on profitability. And frankly, that's another thing that wasn't cool for a long time. Right. We took a lot of meetings with people that said, why aren't you, showing more growth? And why don't you, spend all your money? You should be growing as much as you can. And then all of a sudden, we took a turn a couple of years ago where it was like, wow, you guys are profitable? That's cool. and so now that's, a much more important thing for a company like ours.
I'm glad profitability is cool again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does go in waves.
Yeah.
How did it affect the types of investors that you chose? Like when you had those conversations, what resonated with the investors that you chose with regards to the choice that you made to drive the business to profitability?
That's a great question because I think in the world that we're all in, a venture investor is their whole business model is based off of a certain trajectory of growth. And it is really hard to find investors that understand brand and building a business based on brands because that takes a lot longer than maybe a technology company or an e-commerce company in its truest sense. So we found investors that were had a lot of experience building brands and that sort of saw the long-term large vision for the company. And I think we've been really lucky with the people that we've done partnerships with.
Got it. Well, since we're coming up on our time, I thought I'd maybe close with one question as to looking back on that time when you were at Elle Magazine thinking about starting this newsletter, Who, What, Where. Is there any advice that you would give past self about the journey she was about to go on?
No, I think that's like, everyone always asks us if you knew one thing, if you could know one. I think it was what we didn't know that drove us, frankly, because I think as an entrepreneur, you tend to overthink things. And, you know, I think if we had understood all the things we were going to have to learn or all the obstacles we were going to face, we may not have done it. And, you know, I think like the biggest mistake one can make is waiting around for, you know, the perfect co-founder, the perfect, you know, person to hire, the perfect amount of funding to, you know, to create something exactly the way you want it. Sometimes you just have to go out and do it and get to market, and you'll improve. You know, if it catches on, you'll have plenty of time to improve the product.
Got it. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I think hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and please give Katherine a round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Thanks so much for doing this.